Maria Stенегард, you have a two-point plan. You came up with a two-point plan, meaning strengthening Ukraine and weakening and deterring Russia. What is Sweden doing better than the rest of us?
Oh, I wouldn't say we're better than the rest of you, but we do a lot. In the Nordics and the Baltics, we do a lot. So last year we provided 1/3 of the total military support provided by all of NATO to Ukraine, and that is not enough. So I'm not saying that the Nordics and the Baltics should do less. I'm saying that everyone else could do a lot more. So we could have this war end already. And the other part is, of course, increasing the pressure on Russia. And there is a lot more to be done. I'm quite frustrated, I must say. Finland and Sweden, we proposed for this 20th sanctions package, a full maritime services ban on all Russian energy for all the vessels going out from Russian ports.
Because energy is
the main
feeding
source of income for the Russian war economy. And yet the proposal is only on oil, and we should wait for the G7. Now, we don't have time to wait. We must be in the front, and then others hopefully will be able to follow, because we need to be as many as possible to put this pressure. And then we should stop the imports of fertilizers. It's the third biggest import we have to the EU, and there are other ways of finding fertilizers. So I'm quite frustrated, I must say.
Senator Graham, how frustrated are you when it comes to sanctioning Russia?
Well, number one,
especially when you look at your president.
Your opening statement was pretty frustrating. That somehow Trump's the problem here. Really? The world order you want to hang on to? How well has that worked? Putin's invaded, what, 3 times? Nothing Europe has done in the past has deterred Putin. And quite frankly, nothing we did in the past deterred Putin. Your approach to Iran is just give it more money. So I'm glad that world order is fading, because it's a complete failure. Now, what will work? What does Putin want? How many people believe he wants to take all of Ukraine? You know who said that? Trump. He wants it all. This is a war based on a guy who wants to reconstruct the past, who has got a view that Ukraine does not deserve to exist, and he's not going to stop until somebody stops him. So you got a 2-point plan? Great. It ain't working. I told the administration that if you want to end this war, you got to get China involved in this war. So we went and talked to the Chinese ambassador. You buy cheap Russian oil. Well, it's not going to be so cheap anymore. Trump put a 25% tariff on India for buying Russian oil. Before the war, they were buying 3%. Then it went up to 30% after the war. Trump put tariffs, now it's going back. So I've got a bill with Dick. The sanctions, fine. It hasn't changed the behavior we're desiring to change. Putin will be, he doesn't care how many of his people die, right? He just wants to hang around. Well, his customers need to care about propping up this war machine. You know, the Chinese tell me, well, what's China all about? 3 things: harmony, moderation, and family. I said, well, you're going to have a hard time selling people in Ukraine that China's into harmony. Without China, he would be out of business. Without Brazil and without India, he would be out of business. So we've got a bill. 85 co-sponsors. You know how hard it is to get 85 senators to agree on anything? Putin's done more to bring us together in the Senate than anybody in America. I'd give him the NATO Man of the Year award if he would come and get it. Bottom line is 2 things I want to do. I want to give tomahawks. I want the U.S. to supply tomahawks to reach out and hurt the infrastructure that he counts on to build the drones and all the other stuff. I want to change the military equation. Secondly, I want to pass our bill, and I want to give President the tools to go to these major countries and say, you're propping up a killing machine. You want to have a normal relationship with the United States? Act normal. It's not normal for a country to take the worst people on the planet and buy their oil cheap and think they're good global citizens. Venezuela, Iran, and now Russia. China's their biggest purchaser. So I'd like to have a better relationship with China. Well, if you don't change your behavior, you're going to run into a real pushback in America. You're not normal. You're buying cheap oil at the expense of a lot of people losing their lives and their family. Some breaking news. This is from Leader Thune. There's broad bipartisan support for increasing the pressure on Russia, its leaders, its economy that is continuing to fuel its year-long war machine. Leader Thune committed to bringing our bipartisan bill to the floor as soon as it is clear that there are sufficient votes to pass it in the United States Senate and be signed by the President. There are sufficient votes to pass the bill. So get it to the floor. Let's vote. Senator Blummenthal has been terrific. I got people on the bill before Trump said he was for it. Dick is getting people to help Trump, which is like the most radioactive thing you could do as a Democrat. The point is that we're working together for a common cause. I went to Saudi Arabia and Jerusalem 8 times trying to help Biden normalize between Saudi Arabia and Israel. I was told Republicans, don't let Trump do that. No, do it if you can. So to my Democratic colleagues who want to give President Trump tools to end this war, thank you. Because when the war ends, it ends in a way that Taiwan is not taken by China. If we sell out Ukraine, there goes Taiwan. If we get this right, where security guarantees prevent a third invasion, and he'll come back until somebody makes him stop, we have a free, independent, standing Ukraine. NATO is bigger, NATO is stronger. Ukraine's got the best military in Europe and will continue to have that military, and there are security guarantees, unlike Budapest, then we can end this war honorably and justly. You're not going to get every Russian out. You got to deal with the reality on the ground, but how you end this war will affect the entire world for decades to come. To Senator Blummenthal, thank you for doing something that's hard. Our bill allows President Trump to put tariffs on any country buying Russian energy or doing business with Russia. That's not helping Ukraine. He can go from 0 to 500 and go back down, and it expires after 3 years. So thank you, Dick.
Senator Blummenthal, how confident are you that this bill imposing tariffs of 500%,
up to
500%, how confident are you that this will pass and that President Trump really will support it?
I believe we're going to have the votes.
Yeah, overwhelming.
And as Senator Graham has said so well, for any measure of importance to have 85 co-sponsors is rare to the point of unique. And I want
Makes me wonder about the bill.
I want to salute Senator Graham. You know, the two of us started coming to Munich with John McCain. I am in the John McCain wing of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And I think Senator McCain would be proud of this bill and of our effort to bring members on both sides of the aisle together at a time when members of both of our parties are increasingly isolationist. We have seen in history, in this very place, what happens to appeasement. And we need to be resolved and resolute. Yes, Putin's economy is not good. But Putin is a murderous thug. Stalin starved the Ukrainians. We know the history. Putin is trying to freeze and murder them by bombarding them with missiles and drones. It is a crime against humanity and a time of moral clarity. And that's why I think we will come together for this bill. Let me just make a couple of more points. Europe has been at the forefront, at the tip of the spear. And I want to give a thanks to all of the European nations that are in the coalition of the willing. We met with them in Rome. Senator Graham and I have been partners in this effort. Europeans have helped to lead by example, upping and stepping up in terms of their resources. More to be done. And yes, the United States needs to do more too. We need to increase our industrial capacity to provide the Tomahawks and the interceptors for Patriot systems, a slew of military aid. If we do it, if we show our resolve, Putin's economy can't survive forever. He is counting on stalling and stonewalling us, playing to the weakness of democracies. We all know democracies are messy. You know, we tolerate dissent in democracy. We don't lock up our critics. We don't silence them. And that's what makes democracies great. Winston Churchill said, America always does the right thing after trying everything else.
Yeah.
We don't have the luxury of time, and we don't have the luxury of despair or withdrawal. And that's why I so appreciate Senator Graham's leadership, because he talked about my stepping forward. Well, he has stepped forward in a very courageous way in his party, in the United States Senate, and in addition, I know you want me to finish.
No, not at all. Only
in addition,
want
finally, let me
space for
say,
questions.
We want to declare Russia a state sponsor of terrorism because it's kidnapping children, 20,000 kids. Can you imagine 20,000 children abducted, put in re-education camps or foreign or foster families? We want to seize Russian assets, to use those hundreds of billions of dollars to finance not only the war, but reconstruction of Ukraine. We want to use the minerals, the wealth of Ukraine, develop it so that it provides incentives, economic incentives for investment there by companies from your countries and ours that at the end of the day will be a source of security for Ukraine. Because if Putin tries again, and we all know he will, they're going to be killing Americans and Brits and French and Danes. And one final point here. This is a lovely setting. It's warm. There is food everywhere. You're going to go to bed tonight in a bed where you'll sleep well. Ukrainians are dying. Ukrainians are freezing. Ukrainians are going without food. Ukrainians at the front are trying to ward off swarms of drones. Ukrainians were told by our military maybe they could last 3 weeks in that initial onslaught. 3 weeks. Our military told the President of the United States, it's over. And when they offered Zelensky a ride out on a helicopter, he said, don't send a helicopter, send ammunition. That is Ukraine. We ought to all be inspired and grateful that Ukraine is fighting our fight. They are fighting and dying to preserve our democracy, and we owe it to them to give them what they need to push the Russians back.
Thank you very much, Senator, for reminding us what really is at stake in Ukraine and elsewhere. I want to open the floor to questions. I'm sure many of you have many questions. But before that, two very short things. Moritz, can I ask you? I quote from an interview you gave recently that nothing would impress Putin more than Germany becoming the real backbone of defense in Europe. Are you sure?
Yes, I think the background for this is Germany is the only country in Europe that has both the fiscal space and the industrial clusters, the industrial resources to really provide the backbone for European defense, allowing our American friends to focus on other problems in other parts of the world. The problem is we haven't really started that process. We now have the inputs, we have changed the constitution, we have the money that we can give into that. Now I think it's time for Germany, time for Europe to spend that money smart and by building up the industrial capacity that we have. And of course that will impress Putin because he does not want to face the prospect of really having a strong armed Europe that deters aggression in the Baltics or wherever that might occur. So I think that's the cheapest way actually to guarantee security in Europe is, well, obviously help Ukraine and support Ukraine. There, you mentioned our Ukraine support track at the Kieler Institute. I mean, we've done this last year. Europe has basically taken over from the US as the supporter of Ukraine, as US support has gone basically to zero. And we've done that, and I think that is a success in terms of financial and military aid, not in terms of military support, that's clear, but in terms of measurable financial inputs. And we've stepped up. I think that's a good thing, but even that, if you look at the numbers, I mean, Europe has given something like 0.15% of its GDP, of its gross domestic, of its economic power to Ukraine in support. That is not a lot. There is 99.85% that obviously we can't give it all, but this is a small number. It's also a small number compared to what we've done in the past. So I think while it's a good development and we have stepped up, there's a lot to go. And I just remind you, I mean, actually, we also have the numbers now for last year. Europe last year spent roughly $500 billion on defense. The US defense budget is just shy of $900 billion.
That's half of what we spent.
It's half of what you spent. But the question is, do we get half of what you can in terms of military capability for what we spend? I think the answer is more. I think the answer is clearly no. I think we are fragmented. You just said, I don't know how strong the US would be if you had 50 different armies, 50 different defense ministries.
We settled that
on the state level.
Time ago.
You settled that. Yeah. We haven't, and we spend a lot of money on these inefficiencies in the European
Can I just add one thing? We're in, one quick. We're in
yes, but then I need to ask you one more question.
Well, let me say one thing.
One thing.
We're in Germany 81 years ago. You got a German guy. You're German, right? Mm-hmm. I'm an American saying, yeah, let's make Germany stronger militarily. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who saw that coming?
Thank you for this clarification as well. I wanted to ask you, Senator Graham, about security guarantees. Any negotiated settlement
they got to be real.
Mm-hmm, they got to be real, and they got to be American as well.
They got an audience of 1 or maybe 10. I don't know who's going to take over from Putin. But what did we do wrong in Budapest? Whatever we did, don't do it again. We've done this.
I remember
twice.
Budapest 99.
Yeah, with Crimea. Just don't do something different. Here's what I would do, and I think we're substantially there. I would make it clear that we're going to continue to support the Ukrainian military with everything we got. We're going to sell it, and you're going to buy it, so get an extra job. So what I want to do is make them the most lethal force on Europe in perpetuity until Russia changes. That's a form of deterrence. Number 2, I want to have tripwire forces that won't be American. But in the guarantees, I want to make it sure to Russia that we come in. Under the right circumstances, we, the United States, we fly, fight, and win. That's what's been missing. It's one thing to invade a country you think it shouldn't exist. It's another thing in taking on a bunch of countries that do exist. My goal is when this war is over, that NATO is bigger, is more lethal, Ukraine is there to stay, and Putin's misadventure will not be followed by China. And there'll be no more invasions. That's my goal.
And I even have an idea, if I may, how to pay for this. We use the revenue from your tariffs. I'm not saying 500% is optimal, but we still do 100 billion.
It's open-minded.
There's still 120 billion in trade between Russia and Europe last year.
Well, you tell China we'll divide it up between me and you.
Well, so you see how the rebuilding of the transatlantic relationship really proceeds already. We could continue here probably for hours, but please, your questions. We have 15 minutes left, and I guess you have questions to Екатерina Шульман and also to Maria Stенegard. Anybody with a microphone? phone. I don't know who was first, maybe the lady in front. You just introduce yourself shortly and have a short and precise question.
My name is Janine DiGiovanni. I'm the Executive Director of the Reckoning Project, and we're a war crimes unit funded by the Swedish government and the US government. We work on the ground specifically on the abduction of children. We've been on the ground since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. So my question is about the peace plan. Will justice and accountability be compromised? Because the amount of criminality registered with the Office of the Prosecutor General in Kyiv is enormous. And for the Ukrainian people and for my team who are on the ground now collecting evidence, collecting testimony, peace has to be anchored in human rights.
Senator?
Can I respond? I've been to Ukraine 8 times. Senator Graham and I have been together over the last 4 years. And I've met with children who have been brought back. I've met with parents of children. This is the crime of our century. You know, for children to be abducted in this way is a reminder of the worst chapters in human history. So I'm very hopeful that part of any peace plan will be the return of those children. It is an imperative, a humanitarian imperative. I want to just say it is also a bipartisan, in our Congress, highly bipartisan effort. And I want to emphasize the importance of the statement that Senator Graham read, because it's the result of our going to Senator Thune literally yesterday and asking him what we could say to you. I also want to mention that, you know, we're letting China off the hook here very easily.
Not me and you.
Not, when I say we, I mean the world, but not Senator Graham and myself. China is the toxic element here.
Yeah, totally.
They are enabling and empowering. They're financing. They're making money. There are 8 really big refineries in the world. The biggest refineries are the ones in China. And they are providing machine tools, munitions to Russia because they can see it ties up America. And it distracts the West, meaning our democracies, from trying to contain a country that is bent on dominance, not only in the region, but economically and militarily and politically throughout the world. This is a win-win for them.
There's 2 things.
Maria was, Maria was first.
First of all, thank you
Senator.
so much for what you're doing. I agree with the Senator, this is the worst crime that someone can commit. And then your job is the most important one.
Thank you for supporting us.
Well, it's what we must do. But I must be very clear that there can be no long and lasting peace if there is impunity. Therefore, I was very worried to see the first 28-point plan that was leaked and where impunity was actually on the table. So that is something that we are really fighting for, because I think it will be impossible for these families to move on if there is impunity.
Thank you.
Any agreement has to come to the Senate. So I'm here to tell you, I'm not going to vote for an agreement that I think is deficient to the task at hand, okay? Number 2, I'm not going to support any deal that Ukraine doesn't support. So it's their children. So I want to make 2 things crystal clear from my point of view. Ukraine has to agree to any deal, and it has to come to the Senate for approval.
Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine.
That's promising.
I have a mic.
Yeah, there, and then in the back, I barely see you, but the gentleman over there. So,
Thank you.
No. First she and then.
Svetlana Zalishchuk, Ukraine's ambassador to Sweden. I want to say a few words about the reality on the ground. Today, U.S. decreased financial support to Ukraine by 99% comparatively to last year. Your Excellencies, your bill which I grateful for your leadership, is not voted. And you, dear Lindsi Gрэм, was talking about this bill last year in Munich during the Munich Security Conference. Frozen assets that Senator Blummenthal has mentioned, unfortunately, are sitting in Brussels and haven't been supported as a means to support Ukraine's fight. Tomahawks that have been promised here in Germany to be sent to Ukraine during the elections, unfortunately, are not flying, right? They are not given to Ukraine. And at the same time, my best friend has +5 in her apartment with 2 kids, and my nanny for 4 weeks didn't have heating with -26 Celsius, and I will not continue. But the question is, don't you think you've said that you will not support the agreement which Ukraine doesn't support itself? But the question is, does Ukraine have today all the means to achieve the agreement that will be possible for Ukrainian citizens to support and for you to support yourself? So when all those measures that you've mentioned will be given to Ukraine to achieve that achievement? Thank you.
Yeah, it's taken a long time. But let me say this, I'm proud of what my country's done for Ukraine. We gave you javelins early on. I'm proud of what Europe's done. You stepped up to the occasion. So Ukraine's going to have to make a hard decision. You're not going to evict every Russian. So what I want to do is make sure the deal doesn't lead to a third invasion, that you're an independent, sovereign country still standing. I'm sorry it's not fast enough, but there are a lot of people in America that are conflicted about this. A lot of people wondering, what are we doing? So I'm doing my best to explain it to them. You're doing your best to fight. I've had a lot of engagements with allies who are less than spectacular when it came to sacrificing. I will say this, Ukraine has sacrificed as much for their freedom as any country on the planet since World War II.
And I might just add, you know, you're focusing on the last year, but I'm speaking now for myself. When I first came to the Senate, and I was on the Armed Services Committee, which was in 2010, a number of us, including John McCain, were advocating that we do more for Ukraine. That was when Barack Obama was president. I advocated, and so did Senator Graham, more aid to Ukraine under Senator Biden, under President Biden, under President Trump. This effort has been a long-standing one, and it isn't going to be done overnight. We need to be persistent, and we don't have the luxury of despair or abandonment. We need to be persistent, and all of you have seen in your own lifetimes that in America and in your countries, there are groups of people who want to withdraw, who want to engage in isolationism. Fortress America. Again, appeasement before World War II was not just Neville Chamberlain. It was a group in America who thought everything would be okay, and elsewhere in the world. So this is a constant feature of our history, but now is the time to show our mettle. I think we are at a critical moment. I'm glad we're talking about Russia because Putin is on his heels economically. He's running out of recruits. His war economy is sputtering. The price of oil is down. His revenue from oil is down. We shouldn't underestimate the hand that we have to play.
China's your biggest problem.
Because time might be running out, and time is running out here as well. So one more question, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Alexander Papko, Votak TV, Poland. The naive and simple question, but I just want this to be heard here. So, as dear ambassador said, the peace deal cannot be achieved unless Russian army does not face disaster on the front line. So I have a question to Senator Blummental. What weapons do Ukraine need to make a difference, to destroy Russian army on the front line? Is it discussed when these weapons will be delivered? And I have a small similar question to Katerina Shulman. What should be done, in your opinion, to decrease Putin's capacity to make war, increasing what you said about this administrative capacity? So what should be done to decrease administrative capacity of Putin regime? Thank you very much.
What weapons is that?
Exactly.
Yeah. What kind of weapons would Ukraine need?
Well, here, first of all, let's give Ukraine a little bit of credit. Ukraine is producing drones at a pace that absolutely staggers the American military contractors. And we have visited the plants where they are producing thousands of drones.
They let us fly them, then they stopped.
But here's what they need from us. More ATACMS. They need more ATACMS to fire from the HIMAR artillery so they can reach deeper into Russia. They need Tomahawk missiles, again, so that they can reach long-range targets. They need interceptors for their Patriot missiles to stop the slaughter from the skies. And they need more of the defensive weaponry against that kind of aerial terror. I don't know whether they need more Bradley tanks, but they surely could use more F-16s.
Tomahawks.
And the Tomahawks. That is the kind of industrial capacity that we need a partnership of Europe and the United States. That's not an exhaustive list, but it is the kind of weapons that they need. And if the United States is willing to increase its production, so much the better, but Europeans have that capacity as well.
Thank you, Ekaterina.
The question was
Putin's future.
About the ways to decrease Russia's administrative capacity. I must say the system is doing a pretty good job for this itself, because it's increasingly isolated, including from its own society. So it's making decisions that are both unpopular and hard to implement, like banning and blocking every messenger on the web, and so depriving the people of the instruments of their daily life. So the fabric of everyday existence is now being transformed by the war, while preserving the appearance of normalcy was such an important task for our particular regime, making people believe that nothing is happening. So now it's harder to believe that nothing is happening, because the way people used to live, either they can't afford, or it's becoming forbidden. But what can be done from the outside? Not that much, but encouraging elite defection may be a good way to not to destroy the machine, but to slow down its movements. I don't know if the Venezuelan example is a very inspiring one in this particular audience, but I can tell you how it looks from the Russian side. Here's an example of how you can, be deprived of or get rid of your leader that got you into a tight corner, make a deal with them, with the United States, and remain in place. Because, frankly speaking, there's no regime change in Venezuela, which we may be sorry for, because it's a very unpleasant regime and a repressive one and a highly ineffective one economically, so its people are not happy under such a rule. But for the Venezuelan elites, it presents another picture. So they got rid of Nicolas Maduro, but they retained their privileges and their positions, and they're making a deal with the Americans. So I'm afraid I'm not preaching a very virtuous political doctrine here, but the question was not how to achieve peace and prosperity, but how to decrease Russian internal administrative capacity. That's how.
Elite defection. That sounds interesting.
It's hard to do online or long distance, but there are ways.
Good idea. I agree with that.
There are ways. We all agree. We are at a critical moment. We all agree, I think, time is running out, so we really need to do something. No, I'm so sorry.
For the standing rapporteur on Ukraine in the European Parliament. One short question.
Do we still have the time for this?
Yes.
One more question? I need to ask the MSC team because there's other events following up.
Yeah. Well, we did our job. 90 billion we voted 2 days ago for Ukraine.
Resolution.
And my question is to the American colleagues. I hear your words. I'm happy with what the Senate says. But I wonder, there are new deadlines for allegedly for peace in June. How can you foresee that your president does not, in June or whenever prior to the midterms, that he does not exert again pressure on the victim to give in to an unfair peace? Prior to your legislation voted. I wish your legislation voted, but I'm afraid that your president has other ideas in order to end the war, to be able to say, I ended the war. So, can you comfort me that it will not be the case?
Yeah, I can comfort you. I have no comfort that you prevented the invasion, that the European Parliament failed miserably in deterring aggression. So who are you to lecture me? So really, the European Parliament has made the world a better place. So here's what we're going to do. It's about its customers. You got to break the machine. The machine comes from oil, gas, mostly that. If you squeeze its customers, things are going to change, right? So we may put a tariff on China to the European Parliament. Will you put a tariff on China? Would you put a 25% tariff on China for buying European tariffs on China for buying Russian oil and gas?
Or sanction anyone who buys.
Would you do that? Because you haven't done it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, maybe no blame game here, just trying to explain and to explore possibilities, how we can really work together to help and support Ukraine staying an independent and sovereign country, and to negotiate a settlement, a peace settlement that is really sustainable. We cannot do this if we start to fight amongst each other. Is this something that we all can agree upon?
Yes.
And thereby end the discussion and continue to another place.
Would put a tariff on China if we did? That's not a hard question. Would you?
We really need to wrap up. Senator, I'm so sorry.
Thank you all.